Welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we head into gameplay for DCeased from CMON Games. This was recently on crowdfunding. The campaign itself on Kickstarter has concluded, but there will be opportunities to late pledge in the very near future, so keep your eyes open for that. The purpose of this series of videos is to help you make an informed decision as to whether or not this is for you. Now, I've already gone ahead and put together a prototype unboxing as well as a how to set up video. Now we're diving into gameplay. You'll be able to see this thing in action. I'll put the links to the videos I've already created in the top right hand corner right now. If you want to discuss more about these projects in depth with the community, you can join us on Discord as well as the Facebook group to find more information. Without further ado, let's dive in to the mission itself. We'll talk about the objectives, what we're aiming to accomplish. We'll go over all of our different heroes we have as part of our squad, and then we'll see if we can pull off a victory. The mission I'm undertaking is called Metropolis Under Siege. It's considered a hard difficulty mission. The objectives are simply to take one objective per superhero that began on the board. We have 4 superheroes. We need 4 objectives, and we know there are 6 on the board as per the setup. 2 of them are green objectives, and as you can see from the special setup rules, it says you're randomly mixing 2 into the red objectives. So we know they're in there, and as I mentioned in the setup video, they're actually not green. I just made a mark on them. When we flip them over, you will see that mark when we hit them. Now, the second thing in the objectives it states is to permanently eliminate all the enemies on the board. So once we've got the objectives, we need to also make sure everything on the board has been cleared and secure this area. And speaking of securing things, the objectives which you're trying to gain can only be taken if there's no enemies in the building that you're taking them from, and the superheroes get 10 XP when they do so. Next up, we have super surprises. It says each time you take a green objective, you're going to spawn 1 zombie hero in the zone. So every time we go for an objective that is red currently as we're face down, if we flip it over and it happens to be green, although in my prototype, if it's a red X with a pen mark, that's going to be green. We're going to be seeing a zombie hero in that zone. The last one is about eliminating the horde. It's actually quite interesting. Once we've got the required number of objectives based on the number of heroes we have, so that's 4 in our case, then we're going to be permanently eliminating the horde as our main objective. But what we need to remember is enemies that are eliminated from that point on are not going to go back to the enemy pool, and they'll be permanently removed from the game. So basically we're thinning the hordes to the point of hopefully winning the game. Now let's go through our squad of heroes. We have the green canary starting off, and we're in the blue for all of our heroes, so we always get this first blue one unlocked. The rest will unlock as the danger level starts to increase. So as things get more dangerous, you're also powering up as well. So we have construct creation. This one says before attacking with power sword, you may spend 1 power to gain 1 range. Once during your turn, you may spend 1 power to push 1 other superhero or bystander within range 2 up to 1 zone. And right from the get-go, you always have access to this right here, which is going to be your attack. So you can see here, Green Canary needs to be in the same space in order to make this attack. It is not a ranged one. It's going to give me 3 dice, and I need a 4 or higher on the dice in order for them to be a hit. Next up in green is Green Arrow. We have covering fire. It says you ignore target priority with ranged attacks, which makes a lot of thematic sense for this character. Each time enemies enter a zone within range 2 containing superheroes or bystanders, you may spend a power to perform 1 free bow and arrow attack on that zone. And as you can see, it references the actual attack it can do here. So from the same space or 1 space away, I can shoot, and I get 2 dice looking for 3 or higher. Third member of the squad is Wonder Woman. We have Might of the Amazon. Says you have 4 health, which is the strongest across all the heroes that I currently have. And before attacking with the sword, you may spend a power to have enemies suffer -1 toughness against this attack, which is great. That's the toughness value is what you need to get in terms of the number of hits in order to take out that specific enemy. So by reducing its toughness, it's making it easier to take it out. And your hits don't carry over from one attack to the next. It's all or nothing. You need to get all the hits you need in one attack to take out a particular unit. And you can see here, we've got our sword. It is a 0, so of course has to be in the same space, 2 dice, and 3+. Last but not least, my favorite of all, Batman. We have the Batarang here. This one says once during your turn, you may spend 1 power to eliminate 1 walker or runner within range 1. That will certainly come in handy. And we have our martial arts, which is again in the same space, 2 dice, 3+ to hit. We know how to win the mission, but how do we avoid losing? Well, the mission itself can sometimes have fail-specific rules. So in other words, it might tell you that under certain circumstances, you're going to fail a mission. But if it doesn't mention anything specifically, like this one here in the prototype, then the game is lost when all the superheroes have been eliminated. So you can fight to the final hero. Without further ado, let's go ahead and begin our very first round of play in Metropolis Under Siege. The narrative text states, we can't just keep running. We have to launch some sort of offensive. We're targeting an area downtown. We move in, we secure it, and we eliminate any threats that come our way. Our round is broken into 3 major phases. We have the player phase, the enemy phase, and the end phase. Player phase, every single player is going to take an activation. When their activation is done, you're going to flip over their activation marker. Simple as that. You can choose exactly who goes at whatever time you wish. Especially when you're playing solo, you have full control. So I can switch that activation order for whatever situation I'm strategically trying to go after. Once the player phase has been completed and all 4 of the heroes have gone, you move to the enemy phase. Of course, at that point, you're going to have enemies moving, bystanders potentially moving as well, and then the end phase where certain triggers may occur, and then you wrap right back around to the player phase. Now, this is the first time that I played this scenario, so I'm coming into this one absolutely no experience whatsoever, so we'll see how things go. But from a strategy point right off the hop here, you're going to see that certain rooms have this exclamation mark on it, and what that means with this version is when you go ahead and you crack one of these exterior doors, you're going to be spawning enemies into each of the spaces or zones that have one of those exclamation points. So you can kind of take a look at things and go, well, the larger building here has 3 of them, unless one's hiding underneath this card. No, it's not. So there's 3, 1 here, 1 there, 2 up there, and 1 over here. So technically, these are the easier 3 buildings to hit, but there's nothing stopping a zombie hero from showing up the second we happen to flip one of those objective tokens. So an easy building may not be easy all of a sudden. Now, when the player phase begins, there are 3 things that must be done in order. The very first thing is that every single hero is going to gain a power. So everyone's increasing their power track by 1 right now. All heroes in the squad have had their power track upped by 1, so you'll see Green Arrow and Wonder Woman right here. We talked about abilities earlier and you saw an icon. That same icon can be seen right here. It is the power icon. So whenever you see that, whenever that's referenced, you're typically able to spend power in order to make use of something and get some kind of benefit. You can also spend power off the power track in order to add dice to your roll, so long as you do it before you actually roll. So that's a really nice way of kind of boosting your overall power and just being able to do things a little bit more efficiently as a superhero. There's also other ways to use power on things like the trait cards and different things you're going to interact with as we go through gameplay. That is step number 1 of the player phase. Step 2 is to refresh all the activation tokens and make sure that they're on their green side, which they already are from the very beginning of the game, so you can skip past this right now. And then we go to step number 3, which is activating the superheroes. We can choose the order in which we do this, and once we activate them, as I mentioned before, we'll just flip these over to denote that they've activated. As is the case with Zombicide, every time you activate a hero or a character, you get 3 actions to spend. In this one, there's a number of things you'll be familiar with from other iterations of Zombicide, like moving and opening doors or trading equipment. Although, again, one thing to mention about trading equipment in the same space, you can only do it 1 hero to 1 hero for 1 trade action. You can't just have 4 people in one space and just be doing a full circle of trading going on between everybody. That is not allowed. Other things you can do is picking up objectives, of course, like interacting with them, getting XP, and of course pushing forward with your mission, as we know from previous iterations of Zombicide. There's also collecting equipment. You might find equipment cards and be able to flip those over and add them to your hero. New things for DCeased would be powering up, gaining traits, and rescuing bystanders. These are the 3 new ones. So let's go ahead and talk about those 3. The first one being power up. You'll remember when the player phase begins, every single hero got 1 on the power track. That increase always happens standard, but you can speed that process up in order to get more power even within your turn. On your turn, multiple times, you can spend all your actions if you want to continue to power up, and every time you do, you get to power up on the track by 2. It is worth mentioning though, once you hit 4, you can't go any higher than that anyway, so you're basically just burning actions for no reason. The next action I want to highlight for DCeased is the heroic traits. You have room on your dashboard of each superhero for 2 of them, and on your turn, you're able to take 1 action on your turn in order to take 1 of the heroic traits. You only get to do that once, so you have 3 actions. You cannot take 3 heroic traits back to back to back. So basically, when you want to take 1, that's it for that turn. You'll take it, place it in your player tray if you have a space for it. If you do not, because there's 2 already there, you'll have to toss 1, and then you can slot it in. Basically, there's a one-time use cards. These cards will tell you exactly when you can use them, and then when you use them, as I mentioned, they're gone. Now, the third and final action that I want to highlight for DCeased is rescuing bystanders. You're going to actually see it happen because we're going to attempt to do something right now. We may not be able to rescue it, but I'll show you how things work with them and talk you through it. So basically, we're going to go ahead and have Batman here head south. He's going to crack a door. So Batman uses 2 move actions to get in front of the door, cracks it open with his third, and then we're going to go ahead and spawn for any exclamation points. We have this one right here. We're in the blue danger zone. We look across all our heroes. Whoever's at the highest level, that's the level we're looking at off the card. So in this case, blue still. It's going to be 4 walkers. Well, so much for me showing you what a bystander is all about, seeing as the bystander that was in here actually turned into a walker, according to this. If we had been in the orange or red level, then it'd be a runner instead. Now that I know who's in there, I'm going to go ahead and spend the power I have on Batman right now and depleting it down to 0 in order to use his Batarang, and he's going to throw that thing in there and take out one of the walkers. One last walker to deal with, and that's going to do it for Batman's turn. Let's take a look at his dashboard. I'll show you where he's at, and also we'll flip over the activation marker. I paid the 1 power off the power track. This is the ability I just used, and I've also upticked my XP by 1. Activation is complete for Batman. Worth mentioning that the Walker, the Brute, and the Runner all give an XP reward of 1, whereas with the zombie heroes, it's based on their toughness in terms of how much XP you get when you take them down. Now, the toughness of the Brutes are more like the Fatties. They are a toughness of 2. The Walkers and the Runners, toughness of 1. Now, something worth mentioning from the how to set up video is that the bases that my characters are on are not actually connected. So when I moved Batman along here, I left his base behind. I'm doing my best to remember that as I move them. In the final version, of course, all the bases will be connected to the bottoms, no problem. Wonder Woman's going to activate next. She's going to go north and crack the door. That happened a bit quicker than I probably would have liked. We got ourselves a zombie hero spawning in this space. We're going to go ahead and draw a card up. And on top of the zombie hero, also, we're going to be adding some walkers into the fray. Things got interesting really quick. Green Lantern's toughness is a 4, so we need a pretty solid attack to take this individual out. It says he can attack from range 1. His zone cannot be targeted by attacks from outside his zone, so we have to get right in close with him. After seeing the Green Lantern show up, Wonder Woman runs around the corner for 2 actions to get to the light post. Green Arrow is going to activate and wants to use his bow and arrow in order to shoot into that space, but it's worth mentioning when doing melee or any ranged attacks, the target priority order when you're attacking a zone is zombie hero first, brute, walker, and then runner. So again, we have to be able to get exactly the toughness value on the attack in order to take out that zombie hero. Nothing else will get past the zombie hero and hit the other individuals in that room until that thing is gone. So hence the reason why I have an individual running for the lamppost. I'm hoping I can get Wonder Woman powered up. She can come around the corner and take 1 giant swipe at Green Lantern. Green Arrow is going to use his 2 move to get all the way around the corner here and going to take his final action to shoot into the room. In that zone, there are 3 walkers. We're rolling 2 dice and we're hoping to see some hits here. Let's see how this shot does. Not adding anything else additional into it. Anything 3+ hits. We got 2 hits, and as we can assign a hit to multiple walkers, we're going to take 2 of them down. Green Arrow makes short work of those walkers, getting 2 XP for taking out both of those walkers, and I could have, if I wanted to, before I rolled my attack roll, could have spent the 1 power on my power track for Green Arrow in order to add an additional die into the fray, and if I got a 3+ on that one, it would have taken out the entire room. Again, I'm trying to keep some of the power here for situations when I need it, but they'll likely be coming up real soon. Green Canary is going to use all 3 of her actions to move, and she's going to move to the bottom right corner there, heading towards that building. As part of a move action, I can also move these interactive objects along with me, so I've moved the light post from where it was to the space that I'm currently in, hoping that I won't have to use it, but I can also drag it somewhere else later on if I don't. We've now completed our very first player phase, and if you want to see a nice little round summary in terms of the player phase and what can be done in it, you can see it all laid out there. The enemy phase is next. We're going to activate enemies first, and then we're going to spawn enemies, and then we'll go to the end phase. Enemy activations are pretty straightforward. Every single enemy on the game board gets an action. The first thing they prefer to do is attack. If they can't do that, they move. And the runners and zombie heroes are going to get an additional action on top of it. Each enemy has taken their 1 action, and now the zombie hero is going to take an additional action. Now at this point, still can't attack anything. Nothing is within range 1, and again, nothing diagonal can be done here. Always has to be orthogonal, so it's going to move. But as of right now, it can't see any heroes. For clarity, enemies are always moving towards the closest zone with superheroes or bystanders in their line of sight. So in this case with the Green Lantern needing to take a second action and no bystanders and no heroes are within line of sight, the next thing we look for is just who is closest in general. We have technically 2 zones which are equal distance. Now, because this is 1 individual that's going to activate, we get to choose which way that individual is going to move. If it happened to have been the walkers that we're activating at this point, then the walkers would actually split. We'd have one going one way and one going the other way. And for those curious about that splitting rule, once you do the split, if there's any odd number of enemies that you need to move, the individuals that are controlling the characters get to choose which way that last straggler goes. No additional zombies are coming into the fray because of that split. That's going to do it for activating enemies. Now we look for any bystanders. We don't currently have any because unfortunately the one we did actually find had turned already. So we're going to skip right past that for now, but at this point they would typically move. And now we move to spawning enemies. We're always going to start spawning in spawn zone number 1. The card we got for spawn zone number 1 is Enrage. It says each zone within range 2 of a superhero, replace one walker with one runner. That's going to turn this walker to a runner, this walker to a runner, and one of the two up there to a runner. It ends up being a good news, bad news situation. We have more runners on this side of the table, but things are a little bit more clear over at spawn zone 1. Now we activate the next spawn point, which is one with the exclamation mark, and we got ourselves one runner. Continuing clockwise around the game board, the next one is going to be a Walker Rush. It says spawn and then activate. Talk about getting lucky with one of the earlier spawn cards, because we had a walker sitting in here with our heroes, and if it had stayed a walker, it would have actually activated and attacked us, but because it changed to a runner, that extra activation is not going to hurt us, thank goodness. However, the most recently spawned walkers are going to move, so both of them have activated, and there was one left in the center of Metropolis. The one walker in the middle is equal distance to 2 different zones with superheroes in them, and also has no line of sight, so in this case we can choose which way we want this walker to go. We're going to send him towards Batman. We have one more spawn card to pull. Finally, way up in the top left, we got a runner. We've made it to the end phase, and there is no end phase effects to resolve at this point in time, so we circle right back around and start a brand new player phase. All the heroes are going to go up by 1 on their power track, and all the activation markers are going to flip over. Now, one thing I want to mention about the enemy phase we just went through is that in the future, it's worth noting Green Arrow has a really cool ability here. It says you ignore target priority with ranged attacks, which we already know, but even better is that each time an enemy enters a zone within range 2 containing a superhero or a bystander, you can spend a power to perform a free bow and arrow attack on that zone. So when the enemy phase is happening and enemies are moving towards me, if they're within 2 range, I can make a free attack so long as I spend the power. So it's a nice quick way of being in the background, taking pot shots at the enemy and thinning them out. I didn't do it during the enemy phase because I wanted to go through one full round of play that's clean. Now we're going to pick up the pace of things as we activate each of our heroes and move forward. This time I'm going to start with Wonder Woman first. Wonder Woman's in the same space as a light post. What she's going to do is use an action in order to power up. We're going to boost her from 2 up to 4. My second action with Wonder Woman is to move into the same space, also bringing the light post in with her. And now for her third action, she's going to make an attack. And yes, she's going to go ahead and use 1 power for her Might of the Amazon's ability, which is going to knock the toughness of the enemy down by 1. We know the Green Lantern has a toughness of 4 by default. It's going down to 3, and we're probably going to use some power to add some extra dice into the fray. So Wonder Woman's power track has gone from 4 to 3 to enable the toughness to be knocked down by 1 on Green Lantern. We have 3 dice, which were given based on this light post reference card here. We're going to roll these dice, but first, as I mentioned, we're going to spend some power and add some extra dice. Because we're going to need 3 hits, I'm going to make sure that we take this individual out, at least hopefully. I'm going to use 3 more power, which is all the rest of the power Wonder Woman has. We'll have a total of 6 dice. We got our 6 dice in hand. Wonder Woman is swinging the light post at Green Lantern, looking for 4+. We want 3 of them, and we got it. Now, Green Lantern's overall toughness is a 4, so that's how much experience that Wonder Woman's going to get, which still keeps her in the blue area in terms of danger, which is good. So we've upticked that on her dashboard. We now are going to go ahead and roll a die, as it states in the light post here. After we use it for an attack, we roll, and if we get a 3 or higher, then this light post has been destroyed when the attack was done with it. So let's go ahead and see if it is, and it was. That's going to do it for Wonder Woman's actions. She powered up, she moved, and she attacked. That's all she's got. Now, there is a runner that is way too close to her, so now that her activation is done, in the future, that runner is able to activate twice on its turn, which means it will get in and take a hit at her, so we're going to have to make sure we focus on taking this runner out with these 2 individuals when they activate. Next up, I'm activating Green Canary down here, and we're going to go ahead and take a heroic trait as the first action. The heroic trait that we got is called Show of Resolve. It says discard during your turn and spend 1 power to heal 1 wound. This will go in 1 of the 2 open slots on Green Canary. And a quick shot to show you exactly how it sits inside the player tray. You can only have 2, and if you ever gain 1 beyond the 2 you already have, you have to discard 1 in order to take the new one. Green Canary's second action will be to crack the door to the building. Two things are going to happen inside this building. First off, we have one exclamation mark, so I pulled a spawn card. We got an extra activation for all walkers. We'll do that in a second. And the bystander that's in here is Martha Kent. We're going to get the miniature for that individual. We do have 3 walkers on the table currently, so each one of them is going to be moving as there's no heroes in their zones. That's going to do it, and we got lucky as that other building is now going to be completely empty. I've gone ahead and found the Martha Kent miniature. I just like to place it right on top of the card itself because then it keeps the card and the miniature together. And of course reminds me that once the bystander is with a hero and then that hero chooses to escort that bystander, then that bystander is connected to the hero for the remainder of the game. But the bystander of course can be used as a shield if you wish to take a wound. Of course that's going to have negative ripple effects if you do it. And if you keep the bystander alive, you get to take advantage of the cool passive ability that is on the card. And that states once we actually are escorting this individual, once during your turn, you may spend 2 power to heal 1 wound from 1 superhero in your zone. I'm going to use my final action to move into the room. I'm choosing to leave the light post in the street as I don't need it anyway, as we head towards trying to rescue the bystander there. Now, one thing I forgot to do when I move the walkers closer to Batman and Green Arrow is Green Arrow has a really cool ability. As I mentioned before, I can spend a power to do a free bow and arrow attack against that enemy if it's within a range of 2 when it lands from its movement. So technically, these guys would actually be qualifying for that as well as this individual here. And I'm going to retroactively go ahead and spend that power to do it right now. Now, what's really cool about the ability is that it states each time a walker enters a zone within range 2, which means I'll be able to take a shot at this one and a shot at this one. So we're going to go for this individual first. We're going to be rolling 2 dice, and we're looking for 3+ on the die in order to take this individual down, and we easily got it. I also ticked down the power track and upticked our XP by 1. We're going to now take an attack against this group right here. And that's going to use up my final power for Green Arrow. Let's see if we can take them out. We get 1 of them. And as this is very much a reactionary effect, I'm going to have to keep my eyes open for when this occurs in the future because it's always occurring outside of Green Arrow's actual turn. At this point, we're now going to dive into Green Arrow's turn and get our 3 actions. We're going to use the bow and arrow attack on the runner in the same space as us. We're going to be rolling 2 dice as we've seen before, and 3+, we got a hit. We took it out. Now, I do want to deal with this runner up here because this runner will certainly be targeting Wonder Woman based on being the closest hero to it. So I do want to get a shot off at that thing. So we're going to go ahead and move this individual up 1 space and we'll take out the runner. Or at least we'll attempt to anyway. Let's see how this goes. We got it. Now, the one thing to note is that I did pick up, of course, the 2 XP for the Green Arrow, but that takes Green Arrow into the yellow danger zone. So from now on, spawn cards, we're looking at the yellow area. Now, a strategy always with Zombicide is typically leveling up your characters in unison. In other words, you kind of want to fill up the XP bars for a specific color level that you're in kind of together as much as you can. But of course, once you take an objective token, that's going to typically throw things off the rails because you're going to get 10 XP, and that's going to shoot you into higher danger levels almost automatically. Batman is up next. I'm going to first go ahead and take a heroic trait for Batman. We'll see what we get off the hop here. We got ourselves Take the Lead. It says if you are the first superhero to take a turn this round, discard during your turn to perform 1 free action. That could certainly come in handy. Batman's going to jump into the room with his second action and make an attack. He is using his martial arts skill, which is 2 dice, looking for a 3+ to take this runner down, and got it. That's all 3 actions for Batman. He also, of course, upticks his XP, which I've already done. And that's going to do it. So at this point in time, just in terms of XP, we have Green Canary at 0, has not taken anybody out yet, but got really lucky because the room that she opened up didn't have any enemies anyway. Green Arrow has been the one doing most of the killing so far, is up to 7 in the yellow danger zone. We have Wonder Woman at 4 and Batman at 3. We now activate our enemies. The walker moves 1 position towards the nearest hero that it can see, and then the runner way up there in the top right came from the spawn zone area and moved twice as it has 2 actions, getting right into the space with Wonder Woman, but is unable to attack, doesn't have enough actions to do so. Now we're going to activate the bystanders. The bystander can't get in the same room as Green Canary, so she's going to shuffle to the room with the objective token. And as I mentioned before, if the bystander moves and it's going to move into a space with enemies, it's not going to move at all. The very first spawn is going to get some brutes. We're going to get 2 of them, and then there's going to be a brute rush. We're going to go ahead and spawn them and then activate them. Brutes are going to spawn. These have a toughness of 2 by default, and they're going to get another activation based on the charge, moving them forward. We now activate the second spawn. It's a charging slam, so all the brutes are going to perform 1 move action. Then each brute is going to push 1 bystander or superhero in their zone into a zone within range 1 with the most enemies. This card right now is not so bad for me. The brutes come into the space, which is bad, but then they push Wonder Woman out. So I get to choose in this case. I'm choosing to move her north, and all the enemies are coming down on her. We're going to probably have to have Green Arrow maybe head over there and provide some backup because she's got a lot of enemies coming her way. But this strategically is good for me because I know the bottom right building is clear, so I might as well have her head towards the top right building. Moving clockwise to the next spawn zone, we have another zombie hero showing up here, this time with 2 brutes. We're in the yellow danger zone. 2 brutes have been placed, and we also have Hawkman coming in as a zombie hero. You'll see a toughness of 3, which might be blocked by this brute right here, and the ability down below, which I'll read in just a moment. The miniature is in place, and the card states when he spawns, he performs 2 move actions. If he ends his activation in a zone with a superhero or bystander, you push him and one of them one zone towards the enemies. I've immediately moved Hawkman, but there are no heroes or bystanders in this space, so none of the pushing is going to apply. Nothing else is going to happen here with Hawkman. That'll do it. We have 1 more spawn to go. Now, just before I go ahead and activate this spawn zone, one thing I forgot was to activate this runner that was hiding way up in the top left-hand corner. That happened just moments ago, so no gameplay impact. Will move this individual twice. We got the Walker Rush card, which means 6 walkers are showing up here, and then they're all activating, including all other walkers. All 6 of the walkers have rushed, and it's worth mentioning only the walkers that were spawned get the rush. So previously, I had a brute rush. Thankfully, there was only 3 brutes on the board when it happened, so I just moved those 3 and that was it. But there was a walker rush earlier in the game, so just to correct that, that walker rush should have only impacted the ones that spawned and not all the other walkers that were in play. It mentions right on the card to spawn and then activate. Now, if you're talking about all of one zombie type being activated, you're going to find extra activation cards that will come through the spawn deck. Those will trigger an extra activation for every single zombie of that type. Moving into the end phase, we have no game effects to resolve, so we dived into the player phase. I've already gone ahead and flipped all the activation tokens right side up, and we've also taken 1 power for each hero. One correction from the player phase is that when Green Arrow made it into the yellow danger zone, we got the additional action. We can immediately use it. So I'm going to go ahead and actually take a heroic trait at this point. We're, of course, doing this retroactively. We got ourselves Offer 8. It says discard to have 1 other superhero in your zone, perform 1 free power-up action, and draw 1 heroic trait. Batman's going to start things off. He's going to head into this room right here and take the objective. Unfortunately, when he did this, he flipped over the objective token and found an insidious virus. And this is going to have a zombie hero spawn in this space. We got ourselves Aquaman. Not exactly the best result. Probably should have waited till later to check out that objective, but I gambled and I lost. So in this case, Aquaman is in the same space as me. I've also taken 10 XP as well for Batman, which puts him in the yellow area. So he now has an additional action. So we've used 1 to move in. We used 1 to interact with the objective token. So we still have 2 actions left. We have Aquaman here, and it says superheroes within range 2 must spend a power each time they perform a move action. When he activates, push all superheroes within range 2 of him towards him 1 zone. So we've already spent 2 actions, as I mentioned. Our third action is going to be to power up. So now I'm pushing my power track from 2 to 4. And my final action, the 4th one, because I'm now in the yellow danger level for Batman, I'm going to be able to do an attack, which is what I've been preparing for. I've got 4 dice that I can add into the fray on top of the 2 that I get from martial arts for a total of 6. And we need to get 4 hits on Aquaman. We need to be rolling a 3 or higher. All right, let's go and see how this pans out. I want to see 4 hits really, really bad. We got ourselves the 4 hits easily that we need. So that takes out Aquaman that quickly. That's going to do it for the 4 actions for Batman. A very productive turn. Got our very first objective. We need 3 more. As Batman takes down Aquaman, he gets 4 XP based on the toughness of the enemy. That brings him to 17 total. We're still in the danger zone for yellow, but we are very, very close. 2 more single points of XP will push us into orange. Let's activate Green Canary next. She's going to head into the room for 1 action and pick up the objective for the 2nd. Talk about bad luck. We got another green objective token. Again, I've marked this token because I don't have one with green on the opposite side of the red objectives. So this means another zombie hero is showing up. We have the Martian Manhunter that says spawns in the closest zone with any superheroes. Then 1 superhero in that zone loses 1 power. So unfortunately, Green Canary is going to get knocked down from 3 down to 2. However, the good news is taking the objective gave her 10 XP, bringing her to yellow so she gets an additional action. So she moved for 1 action, took the objective for 2 actions, so she still has 2 actions remaining. Her third action is going to be to power up, so she's going to boost herself from a 2 to a 4 on the track, and then we're going to use all 4 of the power to add 4 additional dice into the roll. She gets 3 dice as a standard, so she's rolling 7 dice, looking for 4+. Within the prototype rules right now, I don't see anything that limits you to only 6 dice, which are the dice that come in the core set. I believe you'll be able to go beyond that. So we're going to roll 6 dice, and then we'll have to roll additionally 1 more just to get the 7th result. So let's see how we do. Of course, if we're looking for 4+, we've got a 50-50 on the die. Let's see how things go. We need 4 for the toughness. We got ourselves a really, really bad roll. I'll go ahead and roll the 7th die, although it's not going to matter whatsoever because, well, we failed this miserably. Unfortunately, that's all the actions that I have for Green Canary, so her turn is done. We still have Green Arrow and Wonder Woman to go. I'm going to activate Wonder Woman right now. We're going to go ahead and move into the same space with all those enemies. I'm going to go ahead and power up, which is going to bring her power level up to 3. 2 actions have been spent. She only has 1 more remaining. She hasn't gotten into yellow just yet. But before we go ahead and do that third action, I'm going to take advantage of an ability, the Might of the Amazons, where I can spend a power in order to knock the toughness of the enemies around me down by 1. Now, I'm interpreting this ability to affect individuals that have a toughness of 2 or higher because, like the runner only has a toughness of 1, -1 would instantly kill it off. And maybe that's how it's played, but it's not specified specifically that I could find in the rulebook just yet. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and do a roll, and we have 1 toughness on the runner, and the brutes are now a toughness of 1 as well. So I've used a power in order to make that effect possible. We're not going to use the final action in order to make an attack here. I get 2 dice for the sword that she has. I'm going to also drain my power track, which has 2 left, to add 2 more dice into the equation. We're rolling 4. We got 4 enemies in here. This is pretty tight, but remember, I do have Green Arrow just off camera over here to help me out if things go sideways. So here's hoping I can take down a bunch of them all at once. We need to see 3 or higher, and we got ourselves just 1. That was a pretty brutal roll, and as it goes in target priority order, we have zombie heroes at the top, then brutes, then walkers, then runners. So the brutes get taken out first. That's going to do it for Wonder Woman. Her turn is done. She did not reach the yellow danger level, so she doesn't have an additional action. Unfortunately, we now go to Green Arrow, the final hero to activate. My first action will be to power up, so I've gained 2 on the power track. I'm up to 3 currently. We are going to take an attack against this zone right here, and I don't have any chance of hitting heroes because heroes are good enough at what they do. They never, on misses or anything else from previous Zombicide iterations, hit each other. The great thing about Green Arrow is that I don't have to worry about the target priority order. I can pick off whoever I want, however I want. So we're going to go ahead and roll some dice here. I'm going to throw a whole bunch into this attack. We're going to use all 3 of the power that Green Arrow has to add 3 additional dice on top of the 2 he already has. So that's going to be a total of 5 dice going in. We're looking for 3s or higher. And of course, the fun part here is that there's additional toughness still in play on the brutes because they don't get any more of that effect from Wonder Woman's knockdown and toughness. It was just for her attack. So they're a toughness of 2, the runner's 1. Let's see how we do. We got ourselves, ooh, that's actually not a bad roll overall. We got 4 hits total. I've chosen to take down the brutes first because we have exactly the number of hits we need in order to take both of them down, as they're 2 hits each. The runner is still there, but we still have actions to spend. I've also, of course, taken the XP as I go along with each and every kill that I get. So next up, we're going to make another attack here. This will be my 3rd action. This time, I have nothing to power the roll up, so I'm just rolling 2 dice at 3+, and I only need 1 hit to take down the runner. Do we get it? Yes, we do. Pretty pleased with this, took my XP. We're going to go ahead and have my final action because I am in yellow with Green Arrow, and Green Arrow is going to turn around and take a shot here at this walker. Actually, instead, I'm changing my mind. We have a runner coming around the corner up north. We're going to take an attack against this individual 2 spaces away. Rolling 2 dice, let's see what we get. We got ourselves a 3. That is a hit. The runner's down. Activations are now happening for all the enemies. A walker and Hawkman end up in the same space as Green Arrow right here. We had these walkers shuffle around the corner and the brutes on their way. Now over here, things are not looking good. We have a zombie hero here. It is Martian Manhunter. It's going to activate. It gets 2 actions. It's going to attack both times because it's in a space here with a superhero and a bystander. Now in terms of who gets hit, it's up to us. There are multiple individuals that could be hit. We get to choose how to divvy these hits up. If I choose to give a hit to the bystander is killed off. Bad things ripple through, as I talked about earlier in the video. All the heroes would lose a power and every hero would lose a heroic trait. We have 3 heroes with heroic traits right now, so I don't really want to do this, and I want to keep this hero, or I should say bystander, alive because I'd like to actually try and escort it and gain its passive ability. So for now, we're going to have Green Canary take both hits, which is not the greatest. Now, of all the characters to take wounds, not a bad one, seeing as we do have a trait here that allows us to discard during our turn, which is not right now, but later we can spend a power to heal a wound. So at least know we can get ourselves back up to 2. Next up, we go ahead and activate any bystanders, and the bystanders that are currently not being escorted would move to a zone with an actual hero inside of it. And we have Martha Kent already in the same zone as a superhero, so not going anywhere. Let's go ahead and spawn for the very first spawn point on the far right here, and we have brutes coming in, 2 of them. Next up, we're going to be spawning in some walkers in a walker rush. Again, the walkers are going to spawn, 6 of them, and only those walkers are going to activate. They're all going to move forward. That'll do it for these spawn zones. Let's move clockwise to the next one. In this spawn zone, we have a walker rush. It's going to be 5 of them showing up here and then all moving into this location. That's going to do it. We now head into a brand new player phase. Every hero going up 1 on the power track. That's going to have Green Canary at 1 power, Green Arrow at 1, Wonder Woman at 3, and Batman at 1. All the activation tokens are now green. We're going to go ahead and start things off with Green Arrow, and Green Arrow wants to attack Hawkman in the same space. Now, as of right now, I have 1 power on Green Arrow. We're going to power up for the first action, bringing us to 3, and then we're going to go ahead and make an attack. Green Arrow can always ignore target priority order, but it doesn't matter because the zombie hero is at the very top anyway. We're bringing in 2 dice for this bow and arrow shot, but we're also spending all 3 of our power to bring in 3 additional dice. We're going to see if we can land 3 hits here and take Hawkman out. Hopefully, we're looking for 3+. We got ourselves, that's easily enough. Hawkman is down. XP jumps up by 3. Currently have 14. We're still in the yellow area here. So we have 4 actions total. I did a power up and an attack. That's 2 actions. We're going to go ahead and use another action here to deal with the walker in our space. We're not going to be adding anything extra power wise because we don't have any. We've drained it all out. Let's go ahead and make a shot with the bow and arrow, and that's going to take out the final walker. We have 1 more action to spend, and honestly, I think I'm going to take a heroic trait because I have room for 1 and I've got space. As of right now, the enemies are all piled down here. Now, north of me, which is off screen, so way up there, just 2 spaces away are 6 walkers. But rather than just kind of take a pot shot at them, I'd rather go ahead and get myself a heroic trait. Let's see what we get. We got Hold Them Back. It says discard and spend 1 power when horde zombies would move into your zone to prevent these enemies from moving into your zone. That is handy. And honestly, where Green Arrow currently is right now is a really good spot because I can crowd control what's coming north and south as well as what's going on to the east, which is really nice for my hero. So this might be a spot he sticks out for a little bit. That'll do it for his turn. He's got his new heroic trait right here, the old one up top, Offer Aid. He needs to get into the same space as another hero, or another hero needs to come to him to use it. Let's now go ahead and activate Green Canary. Green Canary really wants to take down Martian Manhunter. It is a toughness of 4 to do so, so let's go ahead and try and pull it off. I'm going to go ahead and power up twice, so that means I'm moving from a 1 to a 3 and then a 3 to a 4. I actually lose out on the additional one I'd get because you can't go any higher than a 4. Then I'm going to go ahead and spend all 4 of those as part of the roll. So I have 3 dice plus another 4 for a total of 7 dice, looking for 4+ in order to try to get 4 hits. Let's see how we do. We'll be rolling an additional die after these 6 right here. So 4, 5, and 6 land hits. Oh my gosh, what a spectacular hit that was. This individual is gone. Green Canary did 2 power-up actions. An attack action has 1 remaining. We're going to rescue and escort this bystander right here, Martha Kent. Normally the card would go next to the dashboard for Green Canary, but I'm going to leave it here so we can always reference the ability that we get. So going forward, Green Canary has access to, once during the turn, you may spend 2 power to heal 1 wound from 1 superhero in your zone. This is going to come in real handy, especially seeing as she took hits. Wonder Woman's going to activate next and is the only character that I do not have in yellow currently, so instead of sending her into the fire here, we're going to actually have her run to the objective. And the great news is we know this one is safe because the other 2 green ones that were in the mix came up right away. So every objective from now is just going to give us 10 XP, and we're looking for 4 total. We now have 3. An XP boost of 10 gets her to 15. She has an additional action now to spend. She's going to take a heroic trait. We found another one of the take the lead heroic traits. These ones are really good. So when the character goes first in the round during their turn, you can choose to discard this in order to get yourself an additional action. Could come in real handy. I have one on Batman, haven't used it yet. Now Wonder Woman has one as well. Speaking of Batman, he is the last activate in our squad, and just so you know, we have 3 objectives. We need 4. I could currently gather it from inside this larger building, but it doesn't seem like a real good strategy, seeing as when we crack a door here, we'll have multiple spawns happening, 3, whereas the other building on the far top right corner only has 2. and it might make a lot more sense to go that route. So what I probably want to do here with Batman is get him in position to effectively wipe out one of the hordes. So basically, if I can have Green Arrow focus north, and I can have Batman maybe focus down here, I might be able to get things all sorted. So I'm going to bring Batman around. I moved him for 2. I'm going to use my third action in order to power up. So he's going to go from 1 up to 3. And last but not least, he's going to take a heroic trait, which is going to be Empowered Strike. Discard before attacking and spend a power to roll +3 dice. Very useful. That's going to do it for all the superheroes. We now move into the enemy phase. We have enemies activating. Simple activations for the groups on the west side of the board. And similar situation on the east side of the board. All of these just moving 1 space. That's going to do it. Let's now go ahead and spawn for the very first spawn point, and we have Provoke the Horde. If there are no zombie heroes on the board, which there isn't, you're going to spawn a zombie hero. All Horde zombies within range 1 of a zombie hero perform 1 move action. Catwoman appears with a toughness of 3. It says if her zone is attacked and she is not eliminated, if the attacker is also in her zone, they suffer a wound. And as it mentioned on the Provoke the Horde, anyone within range 1 of this new zombie hero is going to be provoked to move forward 1 space. And finally, a group of 3 runners will be showing up. That'll do it for those 2 spawns. Let's move clockwise to the next one. We have 4 runners coming out of this spawn right here. And now let's find out what the final spawn point has for us. A zombie hero showing up here and 3 runners alongside it. And wouldn't you know it, it is Superman himself. Superman is very strong. He comes in with 5 toughness. He can attack from range 1. His attacks deal 2 wounds, and he moves 2 zones with each move action. That's going to do it for the spawning. In terms of bystanders, they're not activating whatsoever. The only one that we have on the game board is already being escorted. So we head to the end phase and roll right back around to the player phase. We're going to up our power tracks by 1. This will have Wonder Woman completely maxed out at 4, Batman maxed out at 4, and the other 2 just have 1 apiece. And that, my friends, wraps up part number 1 of DCeased from CMON Games. Really hope you'll come back and join me for the finale as we see whether or not our heroes are able to pull out a victory. We need 1 more objective token, and I'm aiming to go after the one on the top right, but with all the enemies starting to show up in greater numbers, we have heroes which are on the cusp of going into orange. Things could come down to the wire here. It's looking like we're going to be successful, but things are ramping up quite quickly. Join me as we continue in the next video, and thank you for watching. As always, keep on rolling solo.